of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room. And now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. When we came, we let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. You and me are thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and I fill up the plate. We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour and how your family's doing okay. And leaving, getting a taxi, kissing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room. And now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby, come on. 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 I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room. And now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. Come on, be my baby. Come on, come on, be. I'm in love with your body. Come on, be my baby. Come on, come on, be. I'm in love with your body. Come on, be my baby. Come on, be. I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you.
Are we crazy? Living our lives through a lens. Trapped in our white picket fence like ornaments. So comfortable we're living in a bubble. So comfortable we cannot see the trouble. Are you lonely? Up there in utopia.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the global head of Tableau Foundation, Neil Myrick.
Wow, good morning, Las Vegas. It's so great to see everybody today. And to everybody joining on the broadcast, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us. 8 years ago, almost to the day, I had the pleasure of launching Tableau Foundation on a stage much like this one. We started the foundation with a simple mission and 3 assets that we could use to help achieve it: an incredible product, amazing people, and a little bit of money. And we were ambitious. Our ambition was to help people use data to tackle some of the world's hardest problems. No big deal, right? And we started in true Tableau fashion with a blank canvas. Our dimension was the world, and our measures included improving the lives and livelihoods of as many people as possible. I stand before you today to say, well, we have come a long way. We started with a tiny foundation. And today we're grateful to be part of the larger Salesforce philanthropy team because we share so many values with them. And we have seen Tableau fulfill its promise of helping organizations have incredible impact on communities everywhere. And today, our nonprofit partners are using Salesforce and Tableau to do things like stop the spread of infectious diseases, such as malaria, Ebola, and yes, COVID-19. They're using data to fight hunger and homelessness. And we've watched as they've used data to change entire school systems so that every child has a chance to succeed in schools. Every single day, we get to witness our nonprofit partners helping communities harness the power of data to fight racism, encourage climate action, advance gender equality, and help build a more equitable world. You know, when we launched Tableau Foundation, our promise to you was that we would help people do good with data and that we would build a better world with data together. And in that pursuit, I could not be happier to share what Mark mentioned yesterday. We have hit a big milestone. Just about 3 weeks ago, backed by Tableau's mission to help people see and understand data, Tableau Foundation surpassed $100 million in all-time grant making. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. And through that effort, we have supported more than 11,000 nonprofits in 128 countries. But you know, as I reflected on that milestone, I realized something. We didn't just help find and fulfill the promise of data. No, we did something much bigger and much more impactful. We helped find and fulfill the promise of the Data Fam. This is your $100 million milestone. Each and every one of you has directly or indirectly carried the Tableau Foundation mission forward through your support of this amazing community. And I'm forever grateful for our nonprofit partners, our Tableau visionaries, our employees, and every single person that volunteered to support the mission. And to all of you, I say, thank you. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. We did a lot of great work together, Tableau. But we don't have to look too far to realize that that mission is not done. And arguably, it has never been more critical. Every single day, we get to ask ourselves, what can Salesforce and Tableau do to change the world? A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to ask that question of World Central Kitchen founder, Chef Jose Andres. His global nonprofit is often the first to respond to crises in places like Tonga, Haiti, Afghanistan, and in the US, when disasters and pandemics devastate communities. When people are most in need, World Central Kitchen is there, providing hot meals and hope for rebuilding their communities. We were able to reach Jose by phone. He had just returned from a distribution center in a village in Ukraine. World Central Kitchen is providing an astonishing 300,000 meals per day in that region. I didn't have to ask many questions to get a masterclass on the role of nonprofits in crises and how data and technology can enable them to be as effective as possible. It was a wide-ranging conversation, and I'm excited to share a couple of highlights with you today. Here's what Jose Andres had to say one late night from Ukraine.
Today I went back to this place that I was there over 2 weeks ago. Even the teams of World Central Kitchen, they've been going back there, like in the World Central Kitchen fashion. We don't show up for the photo one day, or we When we show up, we always tell them, don't worry, we'll come back tomorrow. And we'll come back the day after. And we'll come back again until you don't need us anymore. In a way, humanitarian aid has to be that. Cannot be the helicopter mentality that you show up one day if, in few places, if, and almost you say mission accomplished. No, mission accomplished doesn't happen by showing up one day. Mission accomplished only happens when you show up so often that this one moment that they tell you, please don't show up anymore. The restaurants are open. People are going back to work. The supermarkets are open. We don't need you anymore. Please come back used to enjoy our beautiful city. That's the moment you can claim mission accomplished. Yeah. Anything else is just showing up for the photo.
Yeah. You raise a point. I've gotten to know a little bit more about your organization when I've been talking with your data team. And one thing I learned is that obviously you cook meals for people in the communities that are in crisis, but you also build these partnerships with local restaurants and suppliers. Could you tell us a bit about that model? And it ties to that kind of long-term commitment you make as well to communities.
I always say that we are all about partnerships and we are not at all about partnerships. And then all win. We only know what we know, which is one very simple mission. Feed the people that need food and bring water to the people that are thirsty. Anybody that shares that simple same idea, they are part of our team and we are part of their team. And for us, partners are essential. Why? Right now, in the entire Ukraine operation, I think we are less than 14 people of World Central Kitchen. The organization only has 80 in the entire, for the many operations we have around the world. Inside Ukraine, technically, the most we had of the red World Central Kitchen people is 3-4 individuals, and I'm not one of them. 3-4 individuals of World Central Kitchen, they've been able to mobilize an army of 5,000 volunteers. We have 400 restaurants between Ukraine and the 6-7 countries we are in the surrounding areas of Ukraine plus Spain. We are delivering more than 300,000 meals a day. We are delivering food to more than 700 shelters. We are in every single bus and train station, giving comfort to women, children, and elderly, trying to move towards the safety of a city in the west of Ukraine or a country beyond Ukraine. We buy local, we support farmers. When we can buy cabbage and potatoes and beets from a local farmers, instead of bringing the food from overseas, it's amazing. In the process of solving the problem, we don't only feed the people in need, but we create jobs, supporting restaurants that support their cooks, supporting farmers because the restaurants pay the farmers. All of a sudden, every time we feed one meal, we are not only finding a solution to the problem, but we are investing in the economy. One of our dollars sometimes is multiplied 3, 4, and 5 times. This must be and can be and should be the only way to do humanitarian relief. You see, it's not enough to do good. We must do a smart good. If not, even in the process of trying to help people, we create more problems than the problems we are trying to solve.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. I'm curious. I know, I've worked a little bit with your data team and we've supported NGOs responding to disasters for many years. And your team does an exceptionally good job of using data. And I'm wondering what role does data play sort of in how you think about the work that you do?
In a way, I always say that careful with having too much technology, because it can slow you down. But then careful with not having enough technology, because cannot help you to achieve and fulfill your destiny. More success equals better quantity of meals response we can do, smarter, quicker. We don't have to work so hard. All of a sudden give us a very good overview in real time of what people need, and also give you a very good overview when things are getting better. This is the best way we can be delivering results. And I do believe data and technology every day will help us do this better, more efficient, smarter, and more important, You cannot provide relief if you really don't have a true understanding of what's going on. Data and technology gives you that power to have a true understanding of what's happening.
So, Chef, I want to thank you for your time today. We have huge respect for you, for your team, for the work you do around the world. Please stay safe and reach out if there are other ways that we can help. Thank you so much for your time, and please stay safe.
Thank you, my friends. Bye.
Wow, he's amazing, isn't he? Amazing. So, Jose Andres called us while in the middle of World Central Kitchen's largest humanitarian response ever. And they're doing it with just 14 people on the ground who are mobilizing thousands of farmers, chefs, and restaurants to do what they do best: feed people in their communities. World Central Kitchen is an important Salesforce partner who is using Salesforce and Tableau to inform their decisions and to engage their stakeholders and local community members in their work. In fact, they're demonstrating the importance of involving local communities because they understand that when people from within the community know best how to feed people from their community. In fact, we've seen a pattern over the last 8 years. Organizations that engage their local communities with data get more impact from data. And after noticing this pattern, we realized that for data to be as powerful as possible for communities everywhere, we need to advance data equity. And here to chat more about that is my really good friend and colleague, Channing Nesbitt.
All right. Thank you, Neil, and thank you, everybody, for having me this morning. My name is Channing Nesbitt, and I lead the Racial Justice Data Initiative here at Tableau and Salesforce. Data equity for us is about helping everyone to use data to drive impact across all the different issues and countries that our partners have worked in. Success and change has come from people working with data together. Data about a community, by a community, for a community, so the decisions that shape their lives are best made by those within a community. If there's a core idea when thinking about data equity, it's about keeping communities central at every step of the process. It's a way of saying, no data about us without us. And through our partners, we're seeing these ideas and principles of data equity really put into action. There are simple ideas that we've seen work over and over again, and they're a through line and have ensured that data is helping to drive meaningful impact and change everywhere. So first, consult with communities about what data to collect. It's their data, so they can be extremely helpful here. Second, consult with communities when exploring their data. Communities can help you understand how to disaggregate and interpret all the necessary information that you need within their data. Third, you all know that when data is visualized, it generates more questions. So establish the proper feedback loop to gather all the necessary information. And lastly, make sure that the people and communities that are using their data can use their data for their own interests. Help them to build data skills and get resources to manage data systems so they can get the value from their data too. So it's one thing for me to stand here on this stage and tell you all about how important data equity is, but I'd much rather introduce you to someone who has made data equity a core part of his community organizing work. So please, everyone, meet Dr. David Turner.
When I was a child, so I was always reading, reading about science, reading about technology, trying to, learn how things work, how things function. I think my life experiences fueled those research interests. Witnessing how the carceral system can impact Black communities in particular, I wanted to learn more about how we can change these systems. It was in my junior year of undergrad when I got involved in a community-based organization called the Social Justice Learning Institute. And it was at that point that I got involved in community organizing. It's about flipping who is the expert. Because now the community is the expert. We are the experts in our experience, and if we have the proper tools, the proper access, and the proper engagement, we can do this research together to collectively change our condition. So I was a part of this campaign called the People's Budget. This campaign was a community-based participatory budgeting process where people in the community got the chance to determine, well, what are the things that we want to invest in? What are the things that we want to see fit? Because data is the collective story that we tell together.
When we asked people if they wanted to invest in law enforcement, 1.6% said we need to make sure that we put money into law enforcement.
And my role in that presentation was to take the data and to clean that up and to present it in a way that was accessible and very clear to the people of Los Angeles to say, well, look, this is what the people actually want.
How is it that this is what the people want to invest in, and then this is what the people don't want to invest in, yet these are the things that get cut first?
That presentation had led to a countywide initiative to take 10% of unrestricted revenue from the county's revenue sources and then put it towards racial justice initiatives. Now we're able to invest money directly into the communities who are impacted, right, by poverty, by violence, and by all these other things that communities are impacted by. And it was at that moment where I fundamentally knew that we were doing good work, that we were doing things that mattered, that we were saving lives.
That video was amazing. So everyone, please help me welcome to the stage Dr. David Turner. All right. So next to the stage, I'm also really excited to invite someone who has made data central to their work with district attorneys' offices and police departments to create more community involvement within criminal justice reform. So everyone, the Chief Product Officer with Measures for Justice, Sheila Herbert. Thank you both so much for joining me here this morning. So David, there was something you said in the video. Data is the collective story that we tell about ourselves. So as you were doing the survey work that we just saw, you were really working with a huge number of stakeholders to figure out in one voice what questions we should be asking, and then understanding how to analyze the feedback. So how did you go about building out a consensus and then figuring out the questions and then analyzing that data in an objective way that really captured the community voice?
Absolutely, thank you for that. Well, I think at first, right, the initial process for us developing the People's Budget Survey started with a list of over 50 demands that were developed by Black community leaders and Black-led organizations in Los Angeles, initially in 2020 as a response to what was happening earlier in the pandemic. If we can recall, Black folks were being disproportionately impacted along with other communities of color, right? So what we wanted to do was we wanted to ensure that Black Los Angeles was not forgotten about in the conversations about equity in the pandemic, right? So with that being said, we put together the demands, and as we were putting together the demands, we saw that the mayor of Los Angeles put out a budget that had an increase to the LAPD budget in the midst of a health pandemic. So we had to respond. There had to be a way for the community to say, hey, this is not right. We need to realign our priorities. So we had led multiple community town halls where we were to develop 3 core areas in order for us to think about investment. These 3 core areas were universal aid and crisis management, reimagined community safety, and the built environment. right? And again, with these particular things in mind, oftentimes when people hear phrases such as defund the police, it creates fear because people assume that without police there can be no safety. And that's contrary to what it is we're arguing. What we're arguing is that our communities need different types of investment, right? What happens when instead of somebody with a gun coming to address a mental health issue, it's a social worker or it's somebody who can actually ensure that that person stays safe, right? So working with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and over 50 organizations, we had worked to develop these core areas, develop our line items, and these line items included, restorative justice, mental health support, et cetera, and that became our survey response. So for us, that's what it looked like in order to build this consensus. And, right, like we had people from all over Los Angeles help to shape what this looked like and to help shift the narrative around reimagining public safety in LA.
Love it. Love it. And I love the focus and calling out the community town halls. Yes, please. I want to call out the use of the community town halls that you all established to really determine those core areas of focus that led to the desired investments that you all were driving towards. So I really appreciate that. And Sheila, Measures for Justice seems to be coming at this from a similar philosophy, but a very different position. You're working with local DA's offices and police departments to publish much more of their data, and then you're making that data the language for that community consultation. So I know that as the work has evolved, you've put in a lot of effort to that consultative process at the start of every partnership. So for you, what has this looked like in practice? And then if you have an example you can share with the audience, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, Channing. Thanks for inviting me on stage. Thank you to the Tableau Foundation. As you might know, district attorneys have a lot of power to determine how justice works for thousands of people in thousands of counties all across the country. So it was obvious to us at Measures for Justice that working with the DAs and the communities they serve and live in is critical to reshaping how the criminal justice system works. At Measures for Justice, our mantra is no data, no change. Our new data platform, Commons, is focused on data equity. One of its key features is it tracks a policy goal that both the DA and a body of community representatives set together. It also captures how the office is handling cases and is designed so that really anyone can understand what they're seeing in the platform and what it all means. The platform is flexible and will work with police and court data as well. We're working with 2 communities now to pilot police measures, and we're exploring ways to incorporate court data into the system. We launched our first Commons in Yolo County, California, which is near the Sacramento area, where the DA's local community advisory board was really instrumental in how the platform turned out, and also, more importantly, in what their first policy goal needed to be. In this case, for this community, it was increasing diversions. So diversion programs, which maybe not everyone knows, offer defendants the opportunity to avoid charges, incarceration, or a criminal record. Since that launch, demand for Commons has really been overwhelming, which means transparency, accountability are creating impact all across the country.
Love it, love it. And again, I want to call out the use of the community advisory boards and how that helped really dictate what data needed to be collected, the policy outcomes that you're driving towards, and then ultimately what stakeholders needed to be brought to the table as well. I think all are huge pieces of data equity. Okay, and I know that one of the things that you've taken seriously throughout this effort as well has been the idea for data disaggregation. So can you also share with the audience about why this has become such an important part of the approach of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to break down data is crucial for making informed policy decisions. In Yolo County, this view of the data allowed them to recognize disparities in who was offered access to diversion programs. This led to an immediate policy change to remove criminal history as a factor that disqualifies defendants from being considered for diversion programs. This is a change that impacts people of color the most.
Thank you, thank you. I want to wrap with a question. Yes, thank you. I want to wrap with a question for both of you about the soft skills side of this effort. Of course, data is powerful and can tell such a profound story, but there needs to be something that the communities you're working in service of can take ownership over and make a part of their own storytelling. So in doing this work, what has your experience been in bringing that data back to your stakeholders? What's been the reaction, and then do you still think that barriers exist for community advocates and organizers to really make data a core part of their work? David, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. Well, first, right, I want to just name that data helps to give movements teeth, right? Data helps to further justify the claims that we're making, because now we know we're not imagining the abuse. We know we're not imagining the disproportionate spending. We know, as a matter of fact, that it is true and it is here, right? So first and foremost, right, community has to be involved at every step of the way, right? So for the People's Budget, Group, there would be a weekly check-in call, right, where, leaders in the People's Budget Coalition would discuss, what's going on not only with the survey, but also with the rest of the work around participatory budgeting. And we'll use that time, right, to start diving through some of the results. So looking at demographics, looking at, what are some of the responses that we're getting, and how do we make sense of these responses in relation to our campaign? Right, and second, one of the things that we did see, right, is the broader positive response, to helping shift the narrative around public safety and alternatives to traditional forms of public safety, i.e. law enforcement, right? So what this looks like is working with community partners to ensure that there's a process of consensus building. Now, again, a lot of people saw what happened in the wake of George Floyd, but do not get it twisted, right? This has been a movement decades in the making, right, to ensure that we can help shift the narrative and build power, right, around shifting what we think about public safety. So working in this movement and that narrative shift worked to accomplish a couple of really concrete things. Some of these concrete things include reallocating local PD dollars as well as school police department dollars to support equity-based racial justice initiatives, right? In addition to that, it led to what we call Measure J, right? Along with a whole bunch of other community organizers in the Reimagine LA Coalition to reallocate 10% of the county's unrestricted revenue for racial justice initiatives, right? So this particular model, right, and what happened in Los Angeles is now leading to a broader national conversation for what it is that communities can do to help to shift the narrative about how we invest our money, how we invest, in cities, in communities, right? So nationally, the People's Budget LA Coalition has been working with, different alliances across the country on participatory budgeting, and this includes making sure that community voice is deeply represented in every step of the way. Right, making sure that communities are dictating what it is they want to see in their public budgets, because again, that is the true goal of civic engagement, is to ensure that we have an engaged populace helping to make decisions about how we govern and function ourselves, right? So again, in the wake of George Floyd and in the wake of the movement for Black Lives, which has been cited in New York Times and in other places, one of the largest racial justice movements, right, in the history of the United States, right, it is absolutely critical that we continue to listen to community, continue to uplift the needs of what it is that the community sees, and work to use data, right, to ensure that our communities can get access to and be able to adequately use the resources and tools that they need to collectively change their conditions.
100%. Yes. Yes. Continuing to invest in the access, continuing to invest in the resources that will continue to drive the work forward so that it's sustainable. Data equity, that's super important. I appreciate that. And Sheila, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's hard to follow, but we've been leading this work for over a decade, and it has opened a lot of doors for the work that we're trying to do. What we've seen is a change in culture in the United States, where data transparency, accountability, and equity are just what people are demanding now of the criminal justice system. That's why our work continues to be successful. We continue to build on that momentum, and why we're bringing new platforms to the DAs, to police across the country. It's a big thing, but it's only still just the beginning. We are working in communities in all of the US major markets. We're contributing to data equity across party lines and across the country.
Love it. Love it. Allowing, yes, yes. Love it. Allowing communities a stake in that understanding and the accountability process is vastly huge and super important when thinking about data equity, so thank you. And with that, I really want to thank you both for sharing this time with me here this morning. You know, David, as you said, the work that you're both doing is changing communities and saving lives. And for that, I know myself, I know Neil, the foundation, everyone here in the audience and with us virtually, we're all extremely grateful for the work that you do. So thank you. Yes. Neil, back to you.
Thank you, Channing. And thank you, David and Sheila, for showing us how data makes change possible. As I leave you this morning, we'd like to play one last video from someone who understands the power of the Tableau community firsthand. Let's hear one last time from Claire Fontenot, CEO of Feeding America. Thank you all, and have a great conference.
In this work, I'm often asked, what can I do to help? The short answer, plenty. A bit longer version. We often talk about our partnerships across 3 indices. We need food, we need funds, and we need friends. Friends. Tableau is proving itself to be quite a friend, where you're sharing your knowledge, you're sharing your know-how, your technology to help inform this future that we're working hard to help to co-create in our society. But there are other ways that people can use their voices. They can be volunteers. So there are plenty ways that you can do it. But I have to tell you, right now you already are. If you're watching me talk, that means you're part of the Tableau family. If you're a part of the Tableau family, you're already helping. This is my chance to say thank you to all of you. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for the partnership. Thank you for the future that we will build together.